Jack Corvin had never thought that a simple trip to the Xylar Space Hub could change his life forever. He was a human engineer, practical, curious, and always ready to solve problems. He had worked on spaceships, star engines, and even a few planetary defense systems for human colonies. But diplomacy? Ceremony? Marriage? That was not something Jack had ever imagined for himself. The Xylar Space Hub was alive with light and sound. Ships from hundreds of species hovered above the massive space station. Some were sleek and shiny. Others looked like moving mountains. The humans visiting for trade and engineering consultation were a small group, dwarfed by the crowd of aliens. Jack followed his human colleagues, trying not to get lost in the maze of corridors and observation decks. "This place is unbelievable," Jack muttered, looking at a floating sky garden where alien flora glowed in soft colors. "I feel like I'm in a dream." "Stay focused, Jack," said Mara, the human trade envoy. "We are here for diplomacy, not sightseeing. Remember, one wrong move, and we could offend the Xylar leaders." Jack nodded, but his attention drifted again when a group of Xylar nobles passed by. They were tall, with skin that shimmered like polished metal, and their eyes were large and luminous. Their clothing looked like flowing liquid, moving as if it had its own life. As Jack admired the scene, an assistant rushed toward him. "Human Jack, quickly, come here, the ceremony is starting." Jack frowned. "Ceremony? What ceremony?" "No time to explain," the assistant said. "You must participate. The Queen commands it." Before Jack could protest, he was led into a large hall. It was immense, filled with thousands of Xylar spectators. At the center stood Queen Lyra, radiating authority and grace. Her skin shimmered in deep blue and silver, her eyes glowing with a calm, sharp intelligence. The humans had briefed him that she was the ruler of the Xylar, respected and feared across several star systems. Jack swallowed nervously. The ceremony began with a chorus of alien chants. The air vibrated with strange harmonics that made Jack's stomach twist. He noticed another alien standing beside the Queen. This was supposed to be the one joining the Queen in the ritual, but as he looked closer, he realized something terrible. The other alien had stepped back, confused, and now the assistants were pushing Jack forward. "No! Wait! I'm not," Jack started, but his voice was drowned by the ceremonial drums. In the blink of an eye, he found himself in front of Queen Lyra. The High Priest, a multi-limbed Xylar, raised its hands and declared, "The union is sealed by the sacred rite." Jack froze. The crowd erupted in a soundless wave of astonishment. The ritual had been completed. In Xylar culture, once this ceremony was performed, it could never be undone. Jack's mind raced. He looked at the Queen. Lyra's expression was unreadable, calm, and regal. She tilted her head slightly. Observing him, there was no anger, only the quiet recognition of the unexpected. I didn't mean to," Jack stammered. "You are now bonded to me," the Queen said, her voice melodic and resonant. "By Xylar law, there is no turning back." Jack's knees felt weak. Bonded? Married? To an alien queen? His life had just been turned upside down in less than 10 minutes. The assistants moved him toward a waiting transport. The hall behind them was filled with murmurs and whispers. Alien eyes following him. Jack tried to stand tall, but his mind was spinning. He was not ready for this. Not at all. The transport flew through the space hub, finally landing in the Queen's palace, a breathtaking structure built on a floating asteroid. Its towers reached high into the void, glowing with energy fields that protected it from cosmic debris. Jack could only gape at the sight. Once inside, he was led to a grand chamber. Crystal walls reflected light in 1,000 colors. Holographic maps floated in the air, showing distant star systems. And there, in the center, stood Queen Lyra again. She gestured for him to come closer. "Human Jack," she said. "Do you understand what has happened?" I think I understand," Jack said carefully. I'm married to you? Lyra's eyes gleamed faintly. Yes. Accident or not, it is now reality. You must learn our ways, or you will bring dishonor to both yourself and your people. Jack felt like the floor was falling out from under him. I don't know anything about Xylar culture, or traditions, or anything. Then you will learn, she said simply. Starting now. Over the next few hours, Jack was introduced to palace life. The customs were bewildering. Meals were composed of glowing orbs that hovered above plates. Communication sometimes happened through thought, sometimes through strange musical tones. Even walking in the palace required careful attention. As invisible force fields shifted based on weight and movement, Jack made a series of mistakes. He bowed too deeply, nearly tripping into a floating fountain. He accidentally touched a ceremonial robe, causing alarms to sound. And he kept referring to Lyra as Queen instead of using the proper title in Xylar language, which made some guards mutter disapproval. Despite the chaos, Lyra watched him quietly, almost amused. When Jack finally collapsed into a chair, exhausted, she approached. You have potential, human, she said. Your mistakes are many, but your courage and willingness to act are unusual. Most of your kind would freeze in such a situation. Jack blinked. Courage? I'm just trying not to die or insult anyone. That is courage enough, she said with a faint smile. Sometimes, survival itself is the first step toward greatness. Just when Jack began to relax slightly, alarms went off. Red lights flashed across the palace, and a voice spoke in rapid Xylar language. Lyra's expression hardened instantly. A threat? Here? Jack asked. Yes, Lyra said. Even in peace, danger can approach quickly. You will see the realities of the universe soon, human Jack. And you will learn why your kind is different. Before Jack could ask more, Lyra summoned a holographic display. It showed a distant system under attack by an unknown fleet. The humans in the space hub had never faced such advanced technology. But Lyra seemed calm, even confident. Humans think the universe is too big and too dangerous, she said. But your species has a way of surviving, of adapting. That is why you were chosen. Even accidentally, Jack stared at the display. His mind was still trying to process the marriage, the palace, and now a real cosmic threat. And yet, somewhere deep inside, he felt a spark of determination. He had always solved impossible problems, and perhaps this was just another impossible problem, but much bigger. Lyra handed him a small device. You will need this, she said. It records energy flows, structural integrity, and tactical positions. You may find it useful. Jack took the device, feeling its strange weight. I don't even know how to use this, he admitted. You will learn, Lyra said. And soon, you will act. For now, rest. Tomorrow, your life truly begins. That night, Jack lay in the palace guest chambers, staring at a ceiling that displayed constellations from multiple galaxies. He thought about his friends, his home, and the life he had left behind. And yet, despite fear, a small part of him felt excitement. He had survived the ceremony, learned part of the palace's strange rules, and even impressed the queen a little. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know how he would navigate this alien world or its dangerous politics. But one thing was certain. Jack Corvin's life would never be the same again. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the palace walls, a galaxy full of challenges waited. Jack Corvin woke to a soft hum that filled the guest chambers of the Xylar Palace. The walls glowed faintly, reflecting alien constellations and colors that shifted like liquid. He rubbed his eyes, still trying to remember if the previous day had been a strange dream, but the memory of the ceremony, the crowd, and Queen Lyra's calm gaze told him otherwise. He was not dreaming. He was married to an alien queen. A gentle chime announced that breakfast would be served in the main hall. Jack, dressed in the simple tunic provided for him, though simple, was relative in a palace where clothing could change color and shape with a thought. He followed a Xylar attendant down long corridors that curved and floated above the palace floor. The breakfast hall was filled with soft, floating lights and hovering tables. Orbs of glowing food hovered just above the plates, shifting colors and scents as they adjusted to the eater's preferences. Jack stared in wonder. He had seen strange alien foods before, but nothing like this. "Eat carefully," the attendant said. "Some flavors are intense for humans." Jack reached for a glowing orb, hesitated, and then took a small bite. The taste was sharp and tangy, yet sweet, almost like nothing he had experienced. He felt a strange energy surge through him, and the attendant raised an eyebrow approvingly. After breakfast, Lyra herself entered the hall. She moved with quiet authority, her shimmering robes flowing as if they had a mind of their own. Her eyes found Jack, and she smiled faintly. "Today, you will learn our customs more deeply," she said. "It is important that you understand Xylar ways, if only to survive in this palace." Jack nodded. "I'll try my best." Lyra gestured, and the attendants led Jack to a training wing of the palace. The wing was filled with holographic simulations, strange devices, and floating platforms. A Xylar instructor approached, multi-limbed and glowing faintly. "This is your first lesson," Lyra said. "We will teach you our etiquette, our combat basics, and how to move safely in our palace. You must begin immediately." Jack gulped. "Combat? I'm not," Lyra interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "Even humans who are engineers can fight, if necessary. Our enemies do not wait for readiness. You will learn." The first exercise was movement. The palace floor had invisible energy fields that shifted depending on the weight and speed of each step. Jack stumbled repeatedly, almost knocking over a floating console. The Xylar instructor floated beside him, adjusting the energy fields and guiding him. "You must focus on balance and awareness," the instructor said. "Do not let fear control you." Jack tried again, taking a deep breath. He concentrated, feeling the subtle vibrations under his feet. Slowly, he began to move without triggering alarms. Lyra watched silently, occasionally nodding. Next was etiquette. The Xylar had a complex system of gestures, eye signals, and tones that conveyed respect, agreement, or dissent. Jack tried to replicate them, often failing and causing small misunderstandings. At one point, he bowed in a way that accidentally insulted a senior advisor, and he had to apologize quickly. "You have patience," Lyra said finally, after hours of mistakes and corrections. "Many would give up, but you persist. That is rare." Jack smiled weakly. "Persistence is all I have. I don't want to embarrass myself or you." Lyra's faint smile widened slightly. "You are learning quickly for a human." As the day continued, Jack was introduced to palace technology. Holographic interfaces floated before him, responding to thought and gesture. Some devices seemed nearly alive, adjusting functions automatically. Jack's engineering mind kicked in. He began to understand patterns, predicting how the systems would respond. At one point, a structural energy conduit in the palace showed signs of instability. Human engineers might have panicked, but Jack recognized the issue from a starship engine he had repaired years ago. He adjusted the controls carefully, stabilizing the conduit. The glowing walls returned to a calm state. Lyra appeared just as Jack finished. "You solved that," she said. "Few Xylar could do it so quickly. Your kind is unexpected." Jack felt a small surge of pride. He was still overwhelmed, still in a completely alien world. But for the first time, he felt he belonged in some way. During a short break, Jack walked through the palace gardens. Floating plants emitted soft light, and streams of liquid energy flowed like water in multiple colors. He sat on a hovering bench, thinking about what lay ahead. He had been thrown into this life by accident, but now he realized that, accident or not, he could make a difference. The quiet was broken by a sudden alarm. A distant part of the palace had lost energy, stability. and the floating platforms began to wobble dangerously. Jack rushed toward the problem, instinct guiding him. He reached the control console and noticed that a minor software error had caused a feedback loop. Using his human experience, he quickly adjusted the code, stabilizing the system before it could collapse. Lyra appeared immediately after. "You acted decisively," she said. "That saved lives. Humans think in ways we cannot. That is why your presence here is valuable." Jack nodded, trying not to show how exhausted he felt. "I'm just trying to do my best." "Good," Lyra said. "Your best is enough. For now." Over the next few days, Jack's confidence grew. He learned to walk the palace halls without triggering alarms, to eat the alien foods without causing digestive chaos, and even to use Xylar gestures correctly in front of advisors and officials. He still made mistakes, but each one taught him something new. One evening, he was invited to a private conversation with Lyra. The palace gardens glowed under the twin moons of the asteroid, casting soft light across floating streams and plants. "You are improving," Lyra said, "but there is more than etiquette and engineering. You must understand the Xylar way of thinking, our priorities, our values. Otherwise, you will struggle in court and diplomacy." I'll try," Jack said. "It's a lot to take in. I barely understand the palace, let alone your politics." "You humans underestimate yourselves," Lyra said. "You adapt quickly, and you think in ways that even we cannot predict. That is why you survived the ceremony and why you are here. Accidental or not, you have potential." Jack smiled faintly. "Potential, huh? I feel like I'm still failing most of the time." Lyra laughed softly, a sound like wind through crystal towers. "Failure is only a step toward learning. Do not fear it. Embrace it. That is how we grow." In the following weeks, Jack's reputation began to spread quietly among the palace staff. They whispered about the human who stumbled into marriage yet solved problems that even experienced Xylar engineers could not. Some were suspicious, others curious, but most were impressed. Jack found himself involved in discussions he had never imagined. Trade negotiations, security assessments, even minor engineering projects were brought to him. He applied simple human logic, often asking questions no one else would consider. Slowly, the palace began to see him as more than a mistake. They saw a unique asset. And through it all, Lyra watched him. Her admiration grew quietly, though she did not show it openly. She recognized in Jack a combination of courage, creativity, and adaptability that her species rarely encountered. One night, as Jack looked out over the galaxy from a palace balcony, he reflected on how far he had come in just a few weeks. He had been terrified, confused, and overwhelmed, but now he had a purpose. He was learning, adapting, and making a difference. He still did not fully understand the complexities of alien politics, the depth of Xylar culture, or the potential dangers that waited beyond the palace walls. But he had a sense of confidence he had never felt before. Jack smiled faintly. Life had thrown him into chaos, but perhaps, he thought, this chaos was exactly where he was meant to be. And somewhere in the distance, Queen Lyra observed the stars alongside him, quietly acknowledging that the human she had married accidentally, yes, might just become an extraordinary partner in a universe full of challenges. The calm of the Xylar Palace was suddenly broken one evening by a warning alarm that echoed through the crystalline halls. Jack Corvin had just returned from a long day of training in palace etiquette and engineering. He was exhausted, but the alarm forced him to attention. Red lights flashed across the hall, and a holographic display activated in front of him. Queen Lyra appeared immediately, her eyes sharp and alert. "A fleet approaches," she said. "A rival faction, the Drevok, is attacking one of our outer colonies. Their ships are fast and heavily armed. If they reach our main systems, the consequences could be catastrophic." Jack stared at the holographic image. Dozens of alien ships, sleek and dangerous, were advancing rapidly toward Xylar territory. He felt a surge of panic, but he forced himself to focus. Humans had a history of facing impossible odds, and Jack knew that even here, far from Earth, he had to think. "What can I do?" he asked. Lyra studied him for a moment. "Your kind thinks differently. You see solutions we might overlook. I want you to assist in planning the defense." Jack swallowed. He had never led an actual battle. His experience was in engineering, in solving problems with tools and machines, not commanding fleets. Yet, the responsibility ignited something inside him. "Okay," he said slowly. "We need to understand their patterns first. How do their ships move? Where are their weak points?" Lyra nodded. "I have gathered intelligence. You may see the fleet's formation." A new hologram appeared, showing the Dravak fleet in detail. Jack leaned closer, analyzing their design. He noticed something others had missed. The ship's energy shields had a delay when firing in sequence, a brief window where the hull was vulnerable. "If we time our attacks, we can exploit that delay," Jack explained. "We can divide our defense into layers. Some ships distract them, some target the shields, and others strike the weak points." "It's risky, but it could work." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "You propose a small force against a much larger fleet. Many would call it reckless." "Maybe," Jack admitted. "But we have to use speed and intelligence, not just brute force." Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "Very well. We will trust your judgment. For now." The next hours were a blur of preparation. Jack worked with Xylar engineers and fleet commanders, explaining his unconventional strategy. They were skeptical at first, muttering about the audacity of a human leading their defenses. But Jack remained calm, walking them through every step with clarity and logic. Slowly, the commanders began to understand the potential. As the fleet assembled in Xylar space, Jack stood on the command deck alongside Lyra. Ships of various designs floated in formation, their engines glowing softly. Jack felt a mixture of fear and excitement. For the first time, he was part of a true interstellar operation, one that could decide the fate of an entire civilization. "Remember," Lyra said quietly, "your choices here affect thousands of lives. Act wisely." Jack nodded. "I will." The Dravak fleet arrived with sudden speed, their weapons lighting the void. Jack took a deep breath and issued his first orders. Xylar ships moved in patterns he had suggested, using bait ships to lure the enemy into the zones where their shields would be vulnerable. It was tense. One miscalculation could mean disaster. Moments later, the plan began to show results. The Dravak ships fired in sequence. And as Jack predicted, the delay in their shields appeared. Xylar fighters struck quickly, disabling key vessels while the main fleet remained protected. Jack's heart pounded, but he stayed focused, directing ships, adjusting tactics, and predicting enemy movements. Human ingenuity. Impressive, Lyra murmured beside him, watching the battle unfold. By the time the Dravak fleet realized what was happening, several of their ships were crippled. Panic spread among their ranks. Jack suggested a decisive maneuver. A focused strike at the enemy's command vessel. It was risky. The humans' plan relied on speed, coordination, and flawless timing. The Xylar forces executed the maneuver. The command vessel was hit, its systems failing. The remaining Dravak ships retreated in confusion. The battle was won. Cheers erupted across the command decks, and even some of the skeptical Xylar commanders approached Jack, clapping him on the shoulder, though it was awkward for their alien hands. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly. "You have done something extraordinary, human. Not many could have achieved this." Jack felt relief wash over him, mixed with disbelief. I just thought logically," he said. "I used what I knew." "That's all," Lyra smiled faintly. "Your logic is different. Your perspective is valuable. And your courage, even more so. You are not just an accidental spouse anymore. You are an ally, a strategist, and a protector of our people." The palace celebrated quietly, but Jack did not let himself relax completely. He knew the Dravak might return, stronger and more cunning. Yet, for the first time, he felt accepted in this alien world. Not just as a human living among them, but as someone capable of making a difference. Over the next days, Jack was involved in the aftermath of the battle. He helped repair ships, reinforce colonies, and even suggested new defensive strategies. Xylar engineers were amazed at his ability to combine human technology with their own, creating systems that neither species could have designed alone. Through it all, Lyra observed him. She noticed the way he stayed calm under pressure, the way he treated both humans and Xylar with respect, and the way he sought solutions rather than blaming others. Her admiration grew quietly, though she did not yet show it openly. One evening, Jack was walking through the palace gardens. The twin moons reflected in the streams of energy, casting a soft glow. Lyra appeared beside him, moving silently. "You performed admirably," she said. "The fleet, the colonies, the palace. Your actions saved lives and strengthened our position. Many doubted you. I did not." Jack laughed softly. "I doubted myself every step of the way. I never expected to lead an alien fleet into battle." "You did more than lead," Lyra said. "You inspired confidence. Even those who mistrusted you now see your value." Jack felt a strange warmth. He realized that, despite the danger, despite the alien world he barely understood, he was beginning to belong here. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for trusting me." Lyra studied him for a moment, her gaze piercing but not harsh. "Trust is earned, and you have earned it. Continue as you have. Human Jack. Learn, adapt, and do not fear mistakes. That is the way forward." The next days were filled with planning for future security, diplomacy, and alliances. Jack found himself participating in high-level meetings, suggesting ways to improve trade with neighboring star systems, and even helping to resolve disputes between Xylar factions. His presence, once considered a mistake, had become a source of innovation and unexpected solutions. Yet, Jack knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and threats were everywhere. But for the first time, he felt confident in his ability to face them. Not just survive, but thrive. At night, he would often stand on the palace balcony, looking at the stars. The universe seemed immense and unknowable. But Jack felt a sense of purpose. He had been thrown into chaos, yet he was learning to navigate it, to influence it, and perhaps even to change it for the better. And Lyra, watching from nearby, knew that the human she had married, though accidentally, was becoming something extraordinary. His courage, logic, and determination were not just traits of survival. They were the seeds of a partnership that could shape the future of her people, and perhaps the galaxy itself. Jack's life had changed forever. What began as a mistake, a wedding he had never intended, was now the first step on a journey that would test his courage, intelligence, and heart in ways he had never imagined. For Jack Corvin, the human engineer, the galaxy was no longer a distant dream. It was a place where he could make a difference, save lives, and find his place among the stars. And somewhere in the glowing palace gardens, Queen Lyra knew that the bond formed by accident might be the greatest alliance she had ever known. Jack Corvin woke to the familiar hum of the palace. Months had passed since the accidental wedding, and much had changed. No longer was he a clumsy outsider stumbling through alien customs. He had learned the Xylar ways, understood their politics, and earned respect not just from the palace staff, but from Queen Lyra herself. Yet, Jack's life was far from ordinary. The galaxy remained unpredictable. Threats emerged from neighboring systems. Disputes required delicate negotiation, and the Dravak, though defeated, were only waiting for an opportunity to strike again. But Jack no longer feared the challenges. He faced them with a mix of human ingenuity and courage, traits that had proven invaluable time and again. Lyra summoned him to the council chamber. As he entered, he saw a gathering of Xylar leaders and humans, all awaiting guidance. Lyra's calm presence commanded attention. "Jack," she began, "your actions have not only protected our people, but they have strengthened our alliances. Your contributions are now recognized across Xylar space. Jack felt a mix of pride and humility. I'm honored, Your Majesty, he said, though he no longer felt the awkwardness that had plagued him early on. A holographic display appeared, showing trade routes, defense grids, and diplomatic ties. Jack reviewed them quickly and noticed inefficiencies that even seasoned Xylar strategists had overlooked. He suggested improvements, blending human technology with Xylar systems, creating a network faster and more secure than before. The council members whispered among themselves, impressed. For the first time, humans and Xylar were working seamlessly together, thanks to a human who had stumbled into marriage by accident. After the council, Lyra and Jack walked in the palace gardens. The twin moons reflected in streams of energy, painting the scene with soft, calming light. You've done more than I expected, Lyra said quietly. You have earned your place here, not as a guest, but as a partner. Jack smiled. I never imagined this. I was just trying to survive the first few days. Lyra laughed softly. Survival was the first step. What comes next is influence, partnership, and understanding. You have shown all these. Jack felt a warmth he had never known. The Queen, once a figure of mystery and authority, now trusted him. And in her eyes, he saw not just duty, but respect and companionship. Weeks later, Jack led a mission to a recently discovered Xylar colony at the edge of their territory. Human engineers worked alongside Xylar technicians, and Jack coordinated the effort, demonstrating solutions that combined both species' strengths. The project succeeded beyond expectations, reinforcing the bonds between humans and Xylar. Back at the palace, a celebration was held. Lyra officially recognized Jack's contributions publicly. Cheers erupted. And even the skeptics could not deny his impact. He was no longer the accidental spouse. He was a hero, an innovator, and a symbol of human potential. During the celebration, Jack and Lyra stood together on the balcony, overlooking the glittering stars. Your people may see humans as unpredictable, Lyra said, but I see courage, wisdom, and loyalty. You have shown what humans can truly do. Jack laughed softly. I guess being thrown into chaos had its benefits. Lyra smiled, a faint gleam in her eyes. Sometimes, the unexpected reveals the best in us. And you have revealed much. Jack looked at the stars, thinking of Earth, of human ingenuity, and of the life that had led him here. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of possibilities. But he knew one thing for certain. He had found his place among the stars, not just surviving, but thriving, alongside the Queen who had once seemed untouchable. The night passed with quiet reflection. Jack realized that the accidental marriage that had terrified him once had become the turning point of his life. It had brought challenges, dangers, and uncertainties, but also friendship, respect, and a sense of purpose far greater than anything he had imagined. In the following weeks, Jack continued to strengthen human-Xylar relations. Trade agreements flourished, defensive strategies improved, and new alliances formed. Wherever he went, people saw the same qualities: courage, creativity, and determination. Lyra and Jack's partnership became a legend across Xylar space. Stories circulated of the human who had stumbled into marriage and changed the fate of an alien civilization through his actions, ingenuity, and heart. One quiet evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Lyra turned to Jack. The galaxy is vast, she said. Danger will always exist. But together, we can face it. And together, we will shape the future. Jack smiled, feeling a sense of peace he had never known. Then let's make sure it's a future worth living for both our peoples. The twin moons reflected on the streams of energy in the gardens, casting a glow over the two of them. And in that moment, Jack realized that accidental beginnings could lead to extraordinary outcomes. He had arrived as a human engineer, bewildered and out of place. Now, he was a trusted partner, a hero, and a bridge between worlds. And the adventure, he knew, was only beginning. For Jack Corvin, life had taken an unexpected turn, but it was the turn that had led him to purpose, friendship, and a place among the stars. And Queen Lyra, standing beside him, knew that in this unpredictable universe, the human she had married accidentally was exactly the partner she needed.